Book 2, Chapter 2 of The Lancashire Witches. This recording is in the public domain. Reading by Andy Minter. The Lancashire Witches, A Romance of Pendle Forest, by William Harrison Ainsworth. Book 2, Pendle Forest. Chapter 2, Read Hall. The road taken by the party on quitting Whalley led up the side of a hill, which, broken into picturesque inequalities, and partially clothed with trees, sloped down to the very brink of the Calder. Winding round the broad green plain heretofore described, with the lovely knoll in the midst of it, and which formed, with the woody hills encircling it, a perfect amphitheatre, the river was ever an object of beauty, sometimes lost beneath overhanging boughs or high banks, anon bursting forth where least expected, now rushing swiftly over its shallow and rocky bed, now subsiding into a smooth full current. The abbey and the village were screened from view by the lower part of the hill, which the horsemen were scaling, but the old bridge and a few cottages at the foot of Whalley Nab, with their thin blue smoke mounting into the pure morning air, gave life and interest to the picture. Hence, from base to summit, Whalley Nab stood revealed, and the verdant lawns opening out amidst the woods feathering its heights were fully discernible. Placed by nature as the guardian of this fair valley, the lofty eminence well became the post assigned to it. None of the belt of hills connected with it were so well wooded as their leader, nor so beautiful in form, while some of them were overtopped by the bleak fells of Longridge, rising at a distance behind them. Nor were those exquisite contrasts wanting which are only to be seen in full perfection when the day is freshest and the dew is still heavy on the grass. The near side of the hill was plunged in deep shade. Thin gauzy vapour hung on the stream beneath, while on the opposite heights, and where the great boulder stones were visible in the bed of the river, all was sparkling with sunshine. So enchanting was the prospect, that, though perfectly familiar with it, the two foremost horsemen drew in the rein to contemplate it. High above them, on a sandbank, through which their giant roots protruded, shot up two tall silver-stemmed beech trees, forming, with their newly opened foliage, a canopy of tenderest green. Farther on appeared a grove of oaks, scarcely in leaf, and below were several fine sycamores, already green and umbrageous, intermingled with elms, ashes, and horse chestnuts, and overshadowing brakes covered with maples, alders, and hazels. The other spaces among the trees were enlivened by patches of yellow flowering and odorous gorse. Mixed with the warblings of innumerable feathered songsters were heard the cheering notes of the cuckoo, and the newly arrived swallows were seen chasing the flies along the plain, or skimming over the surface of the river. Already had Richard's depression yielded to the exhilarating freshness of the morning, and the same kindly influence produced a more salutary effect on Nicholas than Parson Dewhurst's lecture had been able to accomplish. The worthy squire was a true lover of nature, admiring her in all her forms, whether arrayed in pomp of wood and verdure, as in the lovely landscape before him, or dreary and desolate, as in the heathy forest wastes they were about to traverse. While breathing the fresh morning air, inhaling the fragrance of the wild flowers, and listening to the warbling of the birds, he took a well pleased survey of the scene, commencing with the bridge passing over Whalley Nab, and the mountainous circle conjoined with it, till his gaze settled on Morton Hall, the noble mansion finely situated on a shoulder of a hill beyond him, and commanding the entire valley. "Were I not owner of Downham," he observed to Richard, "I should wish to be master of Morton." And then, pointing to the green area below, he added, "What a capital spot for a race! There we might try the speed of our nags for the 20 pieces I talked of yesterday, and the judges of the match, and those who chose to look on, might station themselves on yon knoll, which seems made for the express purpose. 3 years ago, I remember, a fair was held upon that plain, and the foot races, the wrestling matches, and the various sports and pastimes of the rustics, viewed from the knoll, formed the prettiest sight ever looked upon. But, pleasant as the prospect is, we must not tarry here all day." Before setting forward, he cast a glance towards Pendle Hill, which formed the most prominent object of view on the left, and lay, like a leviathan, basking in the sunshine. The vast mass rose up gradually, until, at its further extremity, it attained an altitude of more than 1800 feet above the sea. At the present moment it was without a cloud, and the whole of its broad outline was distinctly visible. "I love Pendle Hill," cried Nicholas, enthusiastically, "and from whatever side I view it, whether from this place, where I see it from end to end, from its lowest point to its highest, from Padiham, where it frowns upon me, from Clithero, where it smiles, or from Downham, where it rises in full majesty before me, from all points and under all aspects, whether robed in mist or radiant with sunshine, I delight in it. Born beneath its giant shadow, I look upon it with filial regard. Some folks say Pendle Hill wants grandeur and sublimity, but they themselves must be wanting in taste. Its broad, round, smooth mass is better than the roughest, craggiest, shaggiest, and most shapely splintered mountain of them all. And then what a view it commands! Lancaster, with its grey old castle on one hand, York, with its reverend minster, on the other, the Irish Sea and its wild coast, fell, forest, moor, and valley, watered by the Ribble, the Hodder, the Calder, and the Lime, rivers not to be matched for beauty. You recollect the old district, Ingleborough, Pendle Hill, and Pennygent, are the highest hills between Scotland and Trent. This vouches for its height, but there are two other doggerel lines still more to the purpose. Pendle Hill, Pennygent, and Ingleborough are three such hills as you'll not find by seeking England thorough. With this opinion I quite agree. There is no hill in England like Pendle Hill." "Every man to his taste, squire," observed Potts; "but to my mind Pendle Hill has no other recommendation than its size. I think it a great, brown, ugly, humpy mass, without beauty of form or any striking character. I hate your bleak Lancashire hills, with heathy ranges on the top, fit only for the sustenance of a few poor half starved sheep; and as to the view from them, it is little else than a continuous range of moors and dwarf forests. Highgate Hill is quite mountain enough for me, and Hampstead Heath wild enough for any civilised purpose." "A veritable son of Cockayne," muttered Nicholas, contemptuously. Riding on, and entering the grove of oaks, he lost sight of his favourite hill, though glimpses were occasionally caught through the trees of the lovely valley below. Soon afterwards the party turned off on the left, and presently arrived at a gate which admitted them to Read Park. 5 minutes' canter over the springy turf then brought them to the house. The manor of Reved, or Read, came into the possession of the Nowell family in the time of Edward III, and extended on one side within a mile of Whalley, from which township it was divided by a deep woody ravine, taking its name from the little village of Sabden, and on the other stretched far into Pendle Forest. The hall was situated on an eminence forming part of the heights of Padiham, and faced a wide valley watered by the Calder, and consisting chiefly of barren tracts of moor and forest land, bounded by the high hills near Accrington and Rossendale. On the left, some half dozen miles off, lay Burnley, and the greater part of the land in this direction, being unenclosed and thinly peopled, had a dark dreary look, that served to enhance the green beauty of the well cultivated district on the right. Behind the mansion, thick woods extended to the very confines of Pendle Forest, of which indeed they originally formed part; and here, if the course of the stream flowing through the gully of Sabden were followed, every variety of brake, glen, and dingle might be found. Read Hall was a large and commodious mansion, forming, with a centre and two advancing wings, three sides of a square, between which was a grass plot ornamented with a dial. The gardens were laid out in the taste of the time, with trim alleys and parterres, terraces and steps, stone statues, and clipped yews. The house was kept up well and consistently by its owner, who lived like a country gentleman with a good estate, entertained his friends hospitably, but without any parade, and was never needlessly lavish in his expenditure, unless, perhaps, in the instance of the large ostentatious pew erected by him in the parish church of Whalley, and which, considering he had a private chapel at home, and maintained a domestic chaplain to do duty in it, seemed little required, and drew upon him the censure of the neighbouring gossips, who said there was more of pride than religion in his pew. with the chapel at the Hall